Hi peeps! I thought that we would do a top 5 today, but not top 5 of all time. I'm not quite ready to go there yet. I was speaking with my Patreon peeps in the tutorial at that donation level for this month, and was just saying I don't think I'm ready to share like my updated top 5 because I have some new decks that are coming in, or decks that I've just purchased, and I'm still like in that lusty phase where you think it's going to be, you know, really intimate forever, but then sometimes that doesn't last, you know. And so when you put that on your top 5 of all time, it can, you know, you got to make sure you know, right? You got to make sure you know. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, oh, I think I'll do a top 5 for late spring into early summer 2024. So I just want to share with you guys what I've been using for decks, and I realized I just forgot to grab one of them personally. So this is not so much in readings. This is going to be more focused on my personal practice and what's been calling to me for card work. I've been moving out of a time of some serious grief, and kind of coming out of my own catabasis, if you will, this month. And it's the 10th today of May, and I'm feeling pretty good today. So I feel a sense of waking up and the dawn of a new day, which is a very beautiful feeling to experience. So I feel deeply grateful to the universe, the divine, my path for that. And I also feel very blessed to be so close to my guides on my path. It feels profoundly special, profoundly awe-inspiring in a lot of ways to be able to connect so intimately and so powerfully, so lovingly with these beings that support us on our journey. And I get to do that for myself, but also in client readings as well. And so I've just been ruminating on the beauty of that, and also needing a little more time in solitude to kind of process. My energy levels have been relatively low, but we're rebuilding, and I'm really excited about that. So it feels good. It feels good to be able to see the top of the mountain now, you know? So I'm very thankful to be in this space, and again, feeling really balanced and inspired and just profoundly grateful right now. And I'm also about to turn 40, so I'm getting ready to celebrate that next week and looking forward to that as well. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. So these decks are decks that I am working with primarily personally. Some of them are coming into card readings and offerings, but it's really about my personal practice with these cards. And I think I'll just dive right in and speak to them. I have either purchased or been gifted a great deal of decks over the last month, and I actually have 5 that are still all wrapped up in their plastic wrap that I will be unboxing on the channel. So these are the decks that just right now at this time in the month of May 2024 are really calling to me to be working with. And so there's going to be more unboxings coming to the channel for the rest of this month for sure, because if one of you gifts and sends me one of these decks, I do really like to unbox it on the channel because you've invested in sharing that with the community, and I want to give everyone a little glimpse into the deck that might be something that they wish to purchase. So that being said, these 5 decks have really spoken to me. The first one is Tarot of Persephone's Garden, which I just did an unboxing of on the channel this week. This is an independently created deck by Cara Small. I really love this deck. I've been feeling really connected to the artwork. Yes, some of you let me know I got some titles wrong. That's totally fine. I'm not perfect. None of us are. But I love pre-Raphaelite artwork. And so I am really just enjoying the beauty of this imagery. And while I have already used this in client readings, I'm really feeling connected to it for myself. There's something about pre-Raphaelite artwork that, I don't know, sometimes I feel like tells the story of my own timeline in a way to date. And so there's a sense of really feeling seen by this deck that I'm just enjoying so very much. I feel very seen by this deck, very understood by this deck, and that while the messages are very clear, because it is one that you can work with Rider-Waite Smith symbolism and structure around very easily. There's also just this sense of, I don't know, you know, I've been talking a lot on the channel about this catabasis that grief will often move you through, or just times of loss can move you into that space of the underworld, your own personal underworld, and traversing those areas. But I think what I've really been discovering is that, you know, when we are moved into that space, it can often be about getting out of that space as quickly as we can. And instead this time, and just exhaling and kind of allowing myself to be in that place, I found all these beautiful pathways within the catabasis for myself that I feel like this deck really illuminates beautifully in card form for me. And so this one's been really profoundly personal for just being with myself, and allowing myself to be where I am without pushing as often as I would to, you know, keep being strong and keep going, but to experience some vulnerability. This deck really does feel like a sister and a friend, someone that you can confide in, who understands where you're at and isn't going to ask more of you than you're capable of giving or even capable of sharing in the moment. So this one has been really, really special. I will put the deck titles in the description box down below if you're drawn to purchase any of these yourself. Okay, next on the list is a surprising one. And for a very long time in my life, I was not going to purchase this deck. I really didn't feel the level of connection over time with the original Oracle of Oddities, which I gifted. I still have a little regret about that. I had a first edition by, I always forget her name. I just want to make sure I don't misspell it or mispronounce it. CLA Goodchild. And so after that, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get any CLA Goodchild decks, even though I should love the artwork. I'm not feeling the connection that I want to in the cards. And then one of my friends purchased the Memento Mori Oracle for me for Yule 2 years ago now. And that deck is in my top 5 Oracle decks of all time, and it always will be. That deck is magical. And so from that place of working with that deck, and it's a daily draw deck for me still. That's how much I love Memento Mori. And I am working with it right now, but I didn't want to put both of these decks in the top 5 because then it would have been like all CLA Goodchild decks. But from this place of really feeling a sense of love with Memento Mori, I decided to buy the Antique Anatomy Tarot. It did go on sale on Amazon. I was like watching it, and so I got it for about 20 bucks, and I thought, even if I don't like it, it's okay. It's okay because it was a, you know, relatively inexpensive investment, and I know I will at least use it in card readings for clients now because I really have come to find my way into her artwork in a sense of not just saying like, this is Memento Mori here, not just saying like, oh, this is pretty, but that I can really find pretty to my aesthetic and eyes, I should clarify, but that I can find the deeper meaning in the imagery as well now. And I have to say, as soon as I opened the deck, I was like, oh my God, I love this deck. And I am wishing that I had purchased it when it was independent, because I believe she did it indie before it became mass produced, but that's fine. This is the one I'm supposed to have, and I firmly believe that. So this is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. And oh my goodness, is it a straight shooter. I have been using it in client readings as well as for myself, but I'm predominantly working with it for myself just from a space of, I have to be really honest with you guys, pleasure. Like the artwork in this deck just pleases me. It's very easy to read with it because it's still lined up with traditional Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. It does have pip styles for the minors, which typically I loathe and despise, but I'm actually enjoying it in this deck. Exception to my rule. It's just special. Yeah, it's really, really special. In my opinion, for me. So you can see the pip style here. I don't know. And you know what I have to say? Like, I don't know, guys. I just love it. You know, when you just love something and you're like, I don't know, I shouldn't love it, but I love it. I just love it. I didn't think I was going to. I fought it for a long time. I'm actually just completely smitten with this deck right now. And that is why, you know, I am kind of loath to do my top 5 right now, because I might include this in it, and I just like to make sure, I want to really make sure this is in my top 5 before I would put it there. These next 2 cards I'm going to show you are maybe my favorite depictions of these 2 cards in my collection across the board. And this first one is the Page of Blades, or the Page of Swords. I love the imagery on this one. For some reason, it just resonates for me with how I visualize the Page of Swords, which is very much about messages, communication, research, discovery. And I don't know, for some reason, that just fits the bill for me, that image. And then this may indeed be my favorite depiction of the Tower. I love this Tower card. What the hell? How have I lived without this Tower card in my life? Look at that. It's stunning. So I was not expecting to fall in love with this deck, but I really have been just loving it. And like I said, for me right now, it's really the pure pleasure of the deck. I just enjoy it in my hands. And I did unbox it personally myself because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. And I know a lot of people really love this deck. And you know, I had a sense when it arrived in the mail last week of like, I just wanted to have a personal moment with the deck. I will be doing a full review on the channel, don't worry. But there was a sense of unboxing it by myself as well that just felt intimate. It feels like an intimate deck. It doesn't feel the same like a sister as Tarot of Persephone's Garden, so much as it feels like a younger brother to me. And it's also just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful to look at. And this card backing, OMG. So I'm actually going to show you the next deck with this one in tandem, because look at how gorgeous they work together. I've actually been drawing a great deal with these 2 decks together. Now this next deck, I have not filmed my full review of yet. And I'm going to butcher the name of this goddess, and she knows that I'm very sorry. And many of you have corrected me, and thank you for the help. It's a little hard for me phonetically to understand how to pronounce it when I'm looking at something in typed form, since my issue with the pronunciation is the typing of it in Gaelic. So I appreciate the help. I'm still going to mispronounce this. I'm going to show you the guidebook title so that if you wish to purchase this deck, you can. Because if you want to purchase this deck, I think you should. I think supporting this artist deck would be a wonderful thing. We need more decks like this in our life. So this is The Wisdom of the Cailleach. It's an oracle and journey with the Old Woman of Ireland by Jane Brideson. I think the issue for me is I don't want to say Kalah because they're different to me. So I get stuck in my pronunciation there. But this deck was gifted to me by a very, very, very dear friend and sister in my life. Someone who I really trust. And I am profoundly touched by this deck. It's really special. I have found it to be, it touches my heart, and it hits the nail on the head every time with the card draw. In addition, this deck really loves to work with clients, especially around their spiritual path. And so it has just been, it can bring tears to my eyes if I think about it a lot, how special this deck is. And yeah, it's just like a still pool of water. And it is accessing the wisdom of the crone and the truth telling and the ceremony and the solitude of that, but also the way in which you experience the power of the connectedness of everything when you move into this space on the wheel and you have an understanding of the ancestors. And so this, much like the Weaver's Oracle, this deck is at the same level as the Weaver's Oracle for me. It's sacred, it's unique, it's to be revered, it's to be honored. And it's to be engaged with, though. It's not to be honored in such a way that you put it up on a shelf and you never use it. It's to be honored and revered and worked with from the space of, no, we get our hands dirty together. We are meant to get our hands dirty together. And incidentally, the artist's artwork, it is reminiscent of Andrew Wyeth for me. and I have a very, very palpable personal connection with his artwork. One of my first conscious memories of an artist's artwork is of Andrew Wyeth's, a print of his that my mother had in her studio before my parents joined the religion they did. And so especially imagery like this is very indicative and evocative of his work for me, in a way that brings me back to the magic of the beings of nature that I have just innately been connected to since coming into this body, in this plane of existence. And so there is a sacredness to the imagery of this deck. And let me grab my Wyeth book. Hold on. So story time. This is not the book that my mother had. I found this in a wonderful used book barn in New Hampshire several years ago, but she did have this book when I was a kid, and this print she had taken out of the art book. And so this artist, Jane Brideson, her artwork reminds me a lot of Wyeth's, but seen through the lens of the sacred feminine, right? So for me, when I think of Wyeth or Wyeth, or however you would like to say his name, I think a great deal of the Maine coastline, and he really captured how it feels to live in Maine, but not be a native to Maine. There's a way that he captured life there, I think, through the lens of a visitor. And it's just his artwork really is impactful for me in a way that was not acknowledged when he was alive. But if you look at prints like this, and then even, hold on a second. I feel like, there we go. It really is show and tell. Even prints like this. And if you take that and compare that to this, there's just a sense of the especially in this exact instance, the tree beings, the people, the beings who lived within the trees, the aliveness, the spirit of the trees. I don't know, there's just a sense of nature that both of these artists have so beautifully captured. And so this deck is really personal and very poignant to me for that level. It also captures crone energy with reverence, with beauty, and with the starkness that I think is sorely lacking in our oracle deck options, our tarot deck options. And so it's decks like Weaver's Oracle and this that are profound in their magnificence. And so I am going to do a full review of this deck. It's going to be a long-winded review with lots of personal stories and insights, I'm sure. But this deck is really, it's really, really special. And I love when you get sent a deck and it hadn't even come across your frame of reference. And it's like, oh my God, where has this deck been my whole life? And that's how I feel with this. This deck is a grandmother. And I feel like I've been waiting for her my whole life. And look at these two together. Aren't they gorgeous? Obsessed. Okay. The next deck that is in my top 5 for right now is the Haunted Manor Oracle by Sirian Shadow. I'm sure you guys are not surprised at all. I just love this deck. It's just me. It's the whole aesthetic. Everything about it is me. I feel so much like this. I don't know. This deck speaks myself back to me, if you will, when I work with it personally, and it's insanely amazing in client readings. It loves to clarify more from an unconscious and shadow perspective in general, but it often gives messages around like, where's the block? It shines a light on the block for me in a reading that will show up for a client around an area or aspect of their path or life where they're looking to create more space or awareness or understanding. And this deck just speaks to that really well. But this is a personal list. And so for me, what I really feel with this deck is a deck that's like really it's me talking to myself when I work with this deck, of what I need to be aware of how I should be proud of myself, of how I can celebrate what I find to be beauty and what I find to be beautiful inside and outside of myself as well. And so I just love this deck. I love it. I love it so much. This too may be on my top 5. Actually, I think yes, this will be in my top 5 Oracle decks of all time on the updated list. But personally, I've been using it a great deal with daily draws to clarify my tarot pull, just to give me a little fleshing out, a little more insight into the general energy of the day. Incidentally, I'm just pulling this because I've been wearing this. I have been working with Azazel and Azrael a great deal in my personal practice, and this deck is very much connected to Azazel for me. So it has that energy of that demonic entity as well. So the number 1 deck that I have been working with, obsessed with, in love with this late spring, cannot get enough of it, I need more of it all the time, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, is Angelarium's Oracle of the Fallen. If I loved Angelarium as much as I do, Oracle of the Fallen even just exceeds that. Now, I'm going to say 2 things to this. One is the guidebook for this deck is insanely good. It's short and sweet, but damn, is it insightful? Do you just feel such a sense of connection to the way it's described and written, and it's just beautiful. It's a very, very special guidebook. It's not intense, it's not a giant one, but it is beautiful. It blows Angelarium's guidebook out of the water. I'm not even gonna lie to you about that or try to I love Angelarium for how I've connected with that deck personally. The guidebook, in my honest opinion, leaves a bit to be desired. This guidebook is amazing. The deck is amazing. The only other thing I will say is because it has the matte cardstock, some of the intensity of the colors in Mohrbacher's artwork is lost. I did discuss this in the unboxing. My opinion on that has not changed. My love of this deck is deepening. So this will probably also be on a top 5 of all time as well. It's one of those things, like you can't know when you purchase a deck if it's going to be a core deck for you, and this is one. In fact, I love it so much that while I've been learning its personality, I have a few clients that I am so blessed with being able to read for regularly, and so I've been using the guidebook, like pulling a card and reading from the guidebook for them at the outset of a reading. Not as part of the reading, because I think if you purchase a reading, you shouldn't need to reference the guidebook to work with it. So it's more just as for my clients who purchase regular readings, a way to say thank you to them, but also let's get to know this deck together. And it's been so much fun because I think the pulls have been just 100% spot on across the board. Also, if you're looking to work with demons or fallen angels, this is a wonderful deck to kind of get you into that essence and energy, and the guidebook will actually really help you as well to feel a sense of personal connection to these entities and energies. So I have been using this as a daily draw. It's been 100% spot on, eerily so, and it's very much a deck for personal reflection. I think it's a deck for connection with the demons, but also for personal reflection, to sit, to reflect, to talk to this entity and energy. And then to see that energy within oneself as well. And how am I engaging with that? How am I embodying that in the energy around me? So yeah, this is number 1 on the 5 because it's such a great deck. It is just such a great deck. And it's one that I think you can go as deep with it as you want, or you can make it surface if you'd like to too. It's up to you how much you want to connect with them, how much you want to feel this, how much you want to be inspired by it, and how much you want it to be a tool that enables you to be the most present on your path. It's kind of like a compass in a way. And it's up to you what you do with the direction you head off in. But this deck is going to help you make sure you're heading off in the direction that you desire and or that is most appropriate for your growth at this time. So it's really, really, really special. It's so, guys, look. Oh, I just love it so much. I love it, love it, love it. So all these decks have been really personally meaningful for me, really personally impactful. Again, honorable mention to Memento Mori, but I didn't want to put 2 Goodchild decks on a 5 deck list. That felt unfair. Yeah, honorable mention to Memento Mori, as well as Carol Hertzer's tarot deck that I have been working with as well. That one's at a super personal level, and I will be doing a full review of that down the road. It was gifted to me, but that feels separate to this collection. These guys are all together, all out on the table, all being used in the trenches with me, getting their hands dirty, and they're really, really special. So I hope you are having this experience with the decks in your collection. And if any of ours match up, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below. But I am, as always, sending you guys oceans of love. Thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, you know, I will see you in the next video. Take care.